been given access to receive messages of clarity, guidance, and love. As channeler, psychotherapist, and author, Noemi Grace has an intimate dialogue with the divine on your behalf. Lisa Berry, creator of the show Light on Living, will be co-hosting as live callers ask their burning question on self-love, self-healing, deepening relationships, areas of struggle, and next steps. By simply listening in, you're receiving wisdom that will lead to sacred stability from every channeled message that Noemi delivers. Join us now as we give you access to angels and grace. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining both Noemi and myself here for this ongoing beautiful series that's thank goodness we have access to the angels, because these are tough ones.
And grace. For me, it's always the grace that sticks out, because every morning I do some spiritual practice, and one of the things I tap into divine love, divine light, and divine grace. And I allow myself, I invite them to fill me up. And when I get to the grace piece, it's so powerful. And it's like this gentle, soothing, like being in a gentle, soothing kind of spa, a bath, water spa kind of a thing, where you're just like, it's just very, very lovely.
Soaking and bathing in grace. Oh my gosh. Well, yes. That is so
basking.
Everything.
Basking. Basking. Yes.
That's the word.
Bask.
And we need to bask in something that's so beautiful and healing, and because we can go through things, especially when we partner up with our ego a little too long or too much, it can feel
good way of putting it. Because we do need to partner with our ego, but it's sort of like, who's calling the shots, right? Who's at the steering wheel? Who's in the navigation, the co-pilot seat? Who's calling the shots? And obviously, sometimes we need the ego to call the shots. We need to assert ourselves. But for the most part, if we can really live from our essence of who we really are, which is so different than what the ego is, we wind up in our power. Yes.
The ego is like a tool. It's not who we are, and it's not an aspect, so to speak. It is, but it's a tool. We need to use. Sometimes you need to use kitchen scissors, and sometimes you need to use a big old machete. I don't know. It's okay.
Well, the ego doesn't have to be a machete. Okay.
I was imagining wheat being cut through. But are you living from your true power source? Is the title of today's show, and it's the question. It's a big one, because when we're thinking about power source, now of course I'm thinking of power tools, because we're talking about that, and ego is one of our power tools, but it's not our power source.
Great distinction, Lisa. I love that. I had not thought of it that way. I love that distinction, that ego is a power tool, kind of like the leaf blower that in a few weeks we'll be having to use again. It's been tucked away. And, so the power tool. So it's the tool that you can use, right? But it's the leaf blower without any power source. If it's not plugged in, or there's no gas there or whatever, it's not going to do a whole lot of anything. So it is. That's a great way of looking at it. It's a power tool. And it's a tool that we can use from our power source. But when we plug it in to something else, feeling hurt, feeling offended, feeling dismissed, whatever, we plug the ego, we use the power tool with that power source. Not so good. Not so good in terms of the outcome and how we're going to feel, the outcome we're going to generate. I mean, there are times when you need to plug it in like that, but it's a rare thing. And so how do we feel? How do we impact our world? And the more that you live from your power source, the more you realize how powerfully you do impact your world, even when you're not intending to impact it. You're being in presence. You're living in your essence, and then you realize, wow, I'm this one said something. That one, I could see the smile on their face. Or you realize that you impacted in a positive way, and it wasn't even like, oh, let me try to uplift. You brought the upliftment because you were the upliftment.
I like that. I like to distinguish about being in presence, because to be, I was going to ask you to do that too. This is fun. I was going to say, let's talk a little bit about what even that means about standing or being and living from your power, because I like the gentleness that presence brings there.
Yes.
As opposed, not opposed to, but when I hear it, I think when a lot of people think about power, again, it's that, it's a bullying type, not bullying, it's a bold, like ego, and coming from, well, if you weren't coming and standing your power, then you're, I think a lot of misconception might be that you're weak, or you are wrong, or, wrong and weak.
Well, and so, what we confuse, and it's actually in the pre-channeled message talks about this. What we confuse, what we tend to associate with our power is power over, right? Yes. Power over this or power for that. Let me, I'm going to protest this. I'm going to stand and you can take me down if you have to, but I'm not moving. And there's a time and a place for that. But this is not, if we live from that place, then we are really not accessing the truth of who we are. We're not living from our essence. So wherever we live from, whatever the source is that we're coming from, that's where our address is. That's where we're residing. And so if we reside from that place, the wound, remember we started this whole series about living beyond the wounds. When we reside in the wound and we come from that, somebody said something or they didn't do something or it hurt my feelings and I'm coming from that wound, that's like going to be very different than feeling the feeling of the hurt feeling and accessing coming from essence, coming from the truth of who you are, and still saying something. When you did that, it hurt my feelings, but you're going to say it very differently. And the result will be you open the possibility for a very different result.
Yes. Oh, I have to do this. There was, and by the way, sorry about that noise. My broom just fell over and smashed.
Earlier I rolled on my chair to get my notebook, so I was like, okay, we're a little noisy today.
We're rambunctious. But a perfect, interesting story about something, and it just literally happened yesterday, so it's kind of perfect timing, is I think I shared this on there. But anyways, I have my email, it just no longer exists anymore. And so I'm trying to catch up with everybody who's using that email and do the proper thing. And so I was supposed to have received an email from somebody. Said, oh, I haven't yet received it. They said, well, I sent it. I was like, well, I'm not saying you didn't send it. Or what I'm saying is that I haven't received it. Could first of all, you check if you did and it went on your end, and then we'll find out where it happened along this line from here. And it was so... they took it as such an attack, like, well, it's not, well, I sent it. You're saying I didn't send it? I was like, no. And then I said, well, now that we know you really did send it, I said, could I confirm which email you sent that to? And they said the email that was no longer. I said, and there lies the problem. I said, I no longer use that email. So could you send it to this address, please? So in my heart, I wanted to give such a lesson. My ego wanted to be like, see, that was nasty. You didn't have to be so grumpy. We came to a solution, but it was... their ego was like, I didn't fail. I did what I said I did. I'm not lying. And he had to approach it differently.
Yes. And the whole thing the whole transaction could have occurred without that need. Yes. So and the thing is that because we've all been there. I've been there. I've been like, what do you mean? I know I did it. It's not on my end. It must be you, And yes. Hey, if you changed your email address, Lisa, you need to give me the new one. And
yes, I do.
Because we do communicate.
You have the right one, actually. It's an old one.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, so it's where we come from.
So it is where we come from. And that's, I've actually noticed, especially since we started this series, that I've been shifting a little in terms of my response to things. When I'm upset, I respond differently. I've been able to communicate that I'm angry sometimes not from ego, from, wow, I'm really angry right now. And been able to say it in such a way that the other person can receive it. And, if I come from the ego, my ego puffs itself up and just tells them you're wrong and you're bad. And of course, using much more eloquent language. But, it's going to put somebody on the defensive. They're going to feel attacked. And so you can communicate anything. If you're coming from the essence of who you are, the truth of who you are, you can communicate it without attacking the other person. And that gives them the opportunity to respond differently, and they may or may not choose that, but you give them the opportunity.
Yes, yes. And what we will do, everybody, so tuning in, listening to this wonderful show, because I'm going to ask you to read the pre-channeled message, Noemi. However, what I'd love everybody to hear is that we're going to help talk about and walk through what are signs that we can observe and just be aware of and witness that we are coming from ego versus our true power source. And I think that's going to be helpful for a lot of people. So
absolutely.
Let's enjoy your
for me, yes, it is something that it's a continuous learning, this new layers of realization that are available. So I call this one living from your true power source. Discerning true self from ego is an essential skill. Many of you think that you're coming from the strength of your true power when you're actually in the force of your ego. But your true power does not need to force anything. It is a force in itself, but it does not use force. It does not assert itself over anyone, yet by its very nature it is assertive. It is assertive in sharing truth through compassion and kindness, which are its nature. Your true power is not power over or power for. It is simply power with no attachment. Because it is without attachment, it does not need to assert itself over anyone. It does not insist on an agenda, yet it knows its truth and can stand in the power of that truth in calmness and peace, with no urgency or forcefulness. Yet it is a force for those responding from ego to reckon with. Your true self knows its value and its truth. It knows who it is. The ego is constantly basing its understanding of itself upon images it's created of itself in your mind that it projects onto the world, hoping for buy-in, for agreement from others. When you are in your true power, you do not need this buy-in. You do not try to convince or manipulate anyone about anything. You simply stand in your knowing, and you are not manipulated by anyone or anything either. You simply know, and that is enough. Yet to have an unshakable knowing is difficult for most of you. You doubt yourself and question your knowing so much that you rarely know things with certainty. To grow in your knowing, you must learn to trust it. You must be willing to extend trust to what you know deep within. The ego lives at the surface of you and is concerned about surface things like appearance and acknowledgement. Yet it also seeks attachment to others and things to increase its sense of worth. You are all so much more worthy and valuable to us than you could ever imagine. Each one of you is infinitely worthy. We will repeat that. Each one of you is infinitely worthy, and your worth lives deep within you, where the truth of who you are resides. You must learn to access this truth to quiet the noise in your minds and bring peace to the unrest in your hearts. Learn to sit in the truth of who you are. Meditation is the best way for most of you to access your own wisdom, truth, and true power source. Before you make decisions, learn to sit in the quiet space of meditation and listen to what your true self says when your mind is silent and your heart is at ease. Cultivate this deep listening, and you will start to know the voice of your true self, the truth of who you are deep inside you. When you've heard this voice, it is much easier to recognize when it is speaking to you. It also becomes easier to discern your ego voice from the voice of the truth of you, and to discern ego strength from your true power, which resides deep within. There is always a calm when your true self speaks or takes action. When ego speaks, there is often a perceived urgency or insistence or need for things to be a certain way, along with an attachment to that. Once you start to listen to your true inner voice, you will learn to spot the difference between ego strength and your true power. The actions you take are so different when you take them in alignment with the truth of who you are. The same choice made from ego will bring you the peace you receive, will bring you the peace that you can receive when you choose from the source of who you are. Learn to slow down and connect deep within, to access your true strength and authentic voice and share yourself from there. The impact will be felt differently by you and others and will be received differently. Learn to access the wisdom and knowing within and to live and choose from that inner wisdom and your true inner strength. And you will empower yourself to live the most authentic and expansive version of you. We encourage all of you to develop this habit and practice to align more and more with the truth of who you are and to live that truth and share it with the world. We see and know who you are, who you truly are, and we encourage you to truly know yourselves and live as the truth of who you are, accessing your inner power source and speaking with your true voice. In great love, we are complete. Namaste.
Always so beautiful. There's three biggies in there that I picked up on from all of our listeners and the energy. So what we can do is we'll go to commercial. When we come back, I'll share what the three things I felt. Ooh, there's some energy around there. We want some more access to, perhaps.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Well, come on back, guys. Access to angels and grace.
The Real Conscious Connection. OmTimes Radio. IOM FM. OmTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OmTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
My loves, you know you're here as a soul-led leader to transform this world through the sharing of your passions and gifts. You are here to be in your warrior of light and align your business with your highest self. I'm Rosalind Fung of the show Activate Your Soulgasmic Business. Let's elevate your business to the next expansive level. I invite you to flow into a business soul alignment discovery call with me at rosalindfung.com. That's ROSALYN, fun as in have some fun, FUNG, and let's see how I can best hold space for you to align your highest self, magnetize your dream clients, and monetize on your soul mission. I can't wait to connect.
COVID-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
Do you feel like your emotions are all over the place? That's normal during this abnormal time. There are a number of ways to cope. Maintain a healthy routine, get enough sleep, eat nutritious food, and exercise at least 30 minutes each day. Schedule some time to talk with a friend or family member. And remember, you can always take a few deep breaths to feel more centered.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
It feels like we're having the theme of a few deep breaths to center ourselves.
Well, and talk about centering yourself. I just opened my phone during commercial, and it's flashing because I have it on Do Not Disturb. Tornado warning until 12:30. So I don't see anything that looks like anything. It's not raining, but if you hear me screaming, I'll be running for the basement. I have 7 more minutes. I don't sense a tornado, but it actually says that it's near the town. It's 2 towns over. So and we don't get tornadoes. They said it was a confirmed tornado. We don't get tornadoes that often, but lately there's been tornadoes. There was tornadoes last 2 weeks ago, and we've had lots of tropical storms, hurricanes, all kinds of crazy stuff.
The sky is breathing deeply. That's what, the
earth, I think she's releasing. She's releasing. It's just so much she's carrying.
Yes, and it's from her true power source, not from her ego. I have to say that just because sometimes it can seem like a tornado when it comes out. And so that was actually a couple of things that came up, and I can roll in part of the 3. Because even in the recorded pre-channeled message, it was repeated, infinitely worthy. And I wanted to take note of that as we share, that we are each infinitely worthy. But if somebody their ego might step in the way there and say, but not you, or no, we're not going to believe that. So if we actually take this very theme and everything we're sharing and talking about right now, that what I'm getting is that you said we can, if we listen to our true voice versus the ego, right? If we learn to listen, then we can discern that, okay, that was ego and this is my true source, and then we'll take different actions. Sometimes we can be so attached. We talked about attachments in there. We're attached to it. So what if we are, our ego is attached to not believing that we are infinitely worthy? That's where the question's coming up for me is it's okay, great to listen, but if we're so attached to it, we can hear it and say, but not for me.
Well, and that's interesting because we can attach, the ego is like sticky paper. It can attach to so many things, and it can attach to things that it likes. It can attach to things that it doesn't like. Whatever it thinks, right? So we have ego truth, right? So the ego truth is I'm not good enough. Then it will be attached to that, and so the thing is to really, for me, the importance is to recognize when I'm coming from that ego wound, right? So the ego has a lot of wounds. The true self, the truth of who we are, the essence of us is unwounded. And that came through in our last show. And so the essence of us is unwounded. And so when we are feeling bad about ourselves, we're in some kind of wound when we're saying, I am not infinitely worthy. And yeah, infinitely is kind of a big word, but so start with, I'm worthy. I'm worthy. So to say I'm infinitely worthy, I wouldn't, shout that from the mountaintops, but this is the source. This is how the divine sees us, and recognize the divine sees us with no distortion. The divine sees us from unconditional love and acceptance. And so how the divine sees us, how source is seeing us, is going to be completely different than how we see ourselves. It just is, because we're not there yet.
Yes. Yeah, we're not there yet. But and that was the other thing. So if we're not, I like that. We're not there yet. So I love that we had that step, like, okay, let's drop the infinite just for now, set it aside. But
sure.
I love the list. Back to the word listen. I actually have a painting in this my event room where I always do these shows, and it's titled "Listen," and I see something so differently in it each time, because in this painting, the non-gender, I never remember this word, androgynous. I don't know if I said that right, but yes. That she has her this being has the ears covered, the eyes are shut, the mouth is closed, and this power is coming into her heart chakra area. And every time I look at it, it's titled "Listen," and because we're listening, not with our minds, not comparing it to all these judgments and attachments, but to listen with your heart is very interesting. Oh, that's the question, Noemi.
Okay, what's the question?
How to listen from our heart space and because the heart space doesn't have the assumptions and judgments and attachments. So how do we listen with that device, that hearing aid?
Well, and so, in this message, they talked about having unrest in your heart. I think they said something about something in your mind. And let's see if I can find it. The ego, the noise, to quiet the noise in your minds and bring peace to the unrest in your heart. So, so if we're wounded in the heart, so the essence of us, yes, it's in the heart. It's in our heart space, but it's even deeper, and so it's like right deep, 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 as you can get in each of us is that essence, is the truth of who we are. And so when we can listen from the heart and parentheses, the truth of who we are.
Yes.
Or the true self, or however you want to say it.
The essence, the truth, the heart. Yeah, and we're not talking about the mechanical, the muscles.
No. But we can have a broken heart, right? So, the psychological heart, the emotional heart can be broken, emotional heart. Wounded.
Exactly. So I think that would be a beautiful. How can we, listen deeply, and just because I'm so drawn, I can feel people saying, yes, I'd like to take different actions. And this is a given. Once we, like you even said, you have conversations differently, you speak differently, you respond differently. So I think that's where the question's coming from. So how to listen and tune into that essence, so that, I guess there's an outcome here, but so that we are deeply affected. We are able to come from a point where, in the end, our actions are different.
Yeah. Okay. I have one thing I was going to say. Let me just writing this down. So what's interesting is, for me, what I just heard was like, if you want to attach to anything, attach to living from the truth of who you are. Be attached to that. That's what the divine was saying as I'm writing. Be attached. We the ego likes attachment. We like attachment. Be attached to that. Because really, when we're attached to anything from the place of woundedness, then it's just, the outcome is going to be somewhat, very different than when we're attached to communicating from our essence, to knowing who we are and coming from that place. Doesn't mean you say, oh, it's okay, they didn't mean it, whatever. If your feelings are hurt, you can communicate that. Hey, that action that you took really hurt my feelings. And you can say that and say it in a way that's loving of yourself and the other person, but speaks in truth, that isn't going, well, oh, could you please, you wasn't the best, like just standing in that power. And I noticed as I was talking like that, my voice got really soft, and I think I probably you might not hear it that well in the recording.
Can't even fake it.
It was just this, I was coming into this, like smallness place. And so standing in the bigness of who you are and coming from that place, really important.
I love that. And on that too, because when you said that about if you're going to be attached, because we have attachment, and what I heard there too is somebody who might say, because attached is like, I don't do commitment. I'm whether they say they're afraid of commitment, I don't like commitment, but this is actually committing to living from the truth. So it's attachment in this beautiful, honoring way.
And we're all doing commitment, right? So if we're living in our ego, we're committed to that. We're committed to what we're doing. Whatever it is that we're doing all the time. However it is that we're being all the time, we're committed to that. We're committed to being what we know how to be, who we know how to be.
Yes. Oh, that's so true. What an observation. That was beautiful.
Yeah, well, they're talking. They're already, okay, I guess we should get into it.
Yes. You're already talking. They're like, hey.
They're already talking. And I'm sucking on a cough drop because I have allergies. But so hopefully they'll manage my voice.
Okay.
So they, I know they heard all of this. So just give me a moment. I'm just going to take a little water and connect and turn it over to them.
Noemi's passing the wheel over.
Thank you for what you've been sharing, Divine, and looking forward to getting more clarification and deepening. So grateful that you're here and that you're willing to communicate, and we're willing to listen. And we are grateful that you are willing to listen. We are grateful for this willingness and for the willingness to learn differently, to learn the non-attachment, to learn to recognize the truth of who you are from who perhaps you have been all your life, which is not fully you, which is a persona, a mask, a shallow, thin slice of who you are, where there's so much more. It is like just taking a little tiny sliver of a cake, of a pie, and not even getting all the ingredients in that sliver. And that's what you know yourself to be, but you are that whole pie with all the goodies in it. And there's so much depth to all of you. There's so much grace. There's so much power. There's so much beauty. There's so much love. There's kindness. All these wonderful attributes are all you. Every one of you. You possess them in a different mix. It's kind of like we talk about ice cream in the book we wrote with Noemi Grace, where each one of you is a unique flavor of ice cream. So you may have the chips and the chocolate, and you might have the raspberries, and you might have different fruits and different things. Each one is unique. Each one of you is unique. And so you are, by living as your ego, by living as the way that you have learned to live and not questioning it and not learning that there is so much more to you, you are depriving not only yourself, but the world of your uniqueness, your uniquely beautiful light, your uniquely beautiful self, your uniquely powerful, talented, gifted, wondrous self. And so you must be willing to let go of the attachment to who you think you are. That is necessary. To discover who you are, if you are hanging on to who you think you are not going to see anything else. If that is where your perception is, if you are seeing the world through a lens saying this is who I think I am, that is all you're going to see. Are you willing to put it aside for even a moment, for even a day, to see yourself in a new way, to see yourself in a new light? There's so much more to you than you know. There's so much more. And what there is to know is so much better than the best of what you know. The best of what you know is not even you fully. It is a piece of you. It is part of you. It is not all of you. And so be willing to learn yourself, who you are. Be willing to learn to be someone else, but be who is you, not someone else that you're not. Right? So many of you are actually living as someone that you're not, because you are living as part of you. You are living not in the fullness of you. You are living not all you. You are living a part of you, and that part of you is a small part of you. You are living the tip of the iceberg of you, and you are so much more profound, beautiful, brilliant, talented, all of that. And your essence is a delight, and it will delight you if you discover it. So be willing to let go of your vision, your understanding, your attachment to that of who you are. And ask us, say, I'd like to know who I am. I think I know, but maybe there's more to me. Show me. Ask us. We will show you. We will help you. We will guide you. We will show you through life circumstances, through the interactions you have with others, through wisdom that will pop into your minds and hearts, and you will discover something more about yourself. So be willing to discover something better than what you know. How about that? It is what it is that you do not know about yourself is so much better than what you know. And in the willingness to discover that, you start the journey. You deepen the journey. You've all been on a journey, but you start the journey to really learn to live from the truth of who you are. which is part of the great journey that you are all on. We are grateful for this opportunity. We love you so much, and we love when we see you loving yourselves and others and speaking to yourselves from the truth of who you are. Great love. Namaste.
That was a fun one. Woo!
That was fun. And in the middle, I heard stop. So I thought maybe I'm too close to the mic or whatever. I had to adjust, but I heard stop.
Oh, okay. Well,
I remember you heard stop once and I didn't hear it. So
that's right. Yes, I did that. Oh, okay. That was interesting. Well, what I really was, I think they're really sitting on and beautiful. And no, that's funny that I said that because I was going to say the tip of the iceberg. Not that they're sitting on the tip of the iceberg, but there you go. It's just the tip of the better than the best of who you already know. I love that piece. Yes. What there is to discover is better than what we already know. And so, how beautiful. It is. And the fact that it wrapped up nicely with, if what there is to discover is better than what you already know, and we drop who we think we are, right, and don't just stay there. That's the key. It's don't just stop. Like you don't know all your everything yet.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. I know we're going to sneak into commercial break, but I love that one. And a lot of people think, okay, phew, I know who I exactly am. I've got it. I'm living for my truth. Good, done. And then what, right? No, it can't be it.
Well, and so that willingness to, right, that sort of beginner's mind of having the cup empty so it can be filled up, or half full instead of being all full. I know myself. And the more that we know ourselves, the more we realize there's more to know.
Yes, and you know what? As we do go to commercial, here's my saying that I just got. Awake each day with a beginner's mind. And I think that was, let's come back to that.
That's beautiful. That is a great one.
Every day.
We'll be back soon.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OmTimes. Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OmTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OmTimes endeavor. Host your show with OmTimes Radio Network.
Consistently attract soulmate clients, begin showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalind Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spot that activates your soulgasmic business by tuning in on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. Join me for your light language activation, and let's magnetize and monetize.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Oh, I had myself muted. Hello.
Usually you greet everyone when we come back, and I'm hearing silence. I was like,
like, oh, where did she go? All right. Well, what I wanted to make sure that we got in here, because in our show description, we want to let people know how, like we asked the question, do you know how to align your ego with the deepest truth of who you are? And I thought that was a perfect one to, after we just, I'm excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, the best is yet to come. Or, there's still more, and better than I could imagine. And then I thought, okay, wait a second. So if I did know, what would that look like? If I knew how to align my ego with the deepest truth of who I am, what would that look like so that I could continue my journey every day with that beginner's mind and experience better than the best?
That is great. I'm sorry, I was a little distracted because apparently we still have the tornado warning and now the rain has come. But I am asking we're putting ourselves in a little bubble here with divine. We're in this divine bubble, and we're going to be okay. It's that was a really great question to come back to. Yeah. Because it's such a powerful question. Do you know how to align your ego with the deepest truth of who you are? That so many people, as they grow spiritually, start to diss the ego. Well, they're in their ego, or like, big ego. And we need our ego. We're not going to be egoless in the world, because the world is organized for ego interaction, and so we do need that. We need our ego to help us navigate the world, and the ego has skills and it knows stuff, but sometimes it doesn't know stuff and it thinks it does. And so it's that alignment when we can be in balance, right? We're communicating, we're living, we're interacting from the truth of who we are, and in this I'm getting the word communion, but that sounds to me I heard communion and I thought, well, that's really interesting, because it was communion with the ego, and I thought, I don't think I commune with the ego. So that's what I was hearing, but is that communion, that fellowship, like that camaraderie that you have with friends, being friends with the ego, and the ego kind of knowing its place, and yeah.
This is so fun. Okay, I just thought of something too. Another little fun story. It just happened on the weekend. I have a very close dear friend who would just give me the world. So it's all, we're all good. And she can come from her true power source. And she had offered me a piece of furniture because there just wasn't room in her house for it. But it was custom made, and she loved it and she valued it. And she was like, of course I would have it go to, Lisa and all these things. But it was something was bothering her about it. And so she had the courage. She partnered with her ego that said, something is just bothering me about just giving this, like, what's wrong? So she actually came to me to have the conversation, saying, I don't even know why I'm saying this. How? Because she goes, it's not like I want money for it. It's not. She goes, and maybe I just want recognition because I had it custom made and it means a lot to me. And I know you know that. But she really, and I was so glad that I was able to witness that she was coming from, she allied with her ego to be able to have that courage to come to me and just say something. And we worked out a really beautiful thing. We're going to do a tradesies. I have something that I don't really use, but it's valuable to me, and I don't, so we're going to swap it out. And so, but there was a solution. Yeah. And
that's a great example, Lisa, And you and I had that interaction recently where we were both experiencing some level of frustration, and we did ally with our ego, because we did say, hey, this is what I need, and found a way to streamline what we're doing so that the preparation wasn't as challenging for us. And so it is better. It's beautiful. Yes.
Yeah, the result was better than what we knew.
Easier. Yeah. Yes, and easier. Yes. So it's like that. So yeah, sometimes we need to speak, right? We know we need to speak. And so if we dismiss it and go, well, it's probably my ego, no big, it's just ego, whatever. We dismiss that, then we are not allying with our ego. We're sort of dissing the ego and not having that opportunity to be heard and received, but also coming and speaking from our true self, from the loving essence that we are. And it's such a beautiful thing when you can do that. And I know when we had that conversation, it was so, it connected us closer because we could both share what was on our heart.
The trust is built.
And the trust was built, and there was no blaming of anything. It was just like, I'm frustrated with this. Oh, well, I'm frustrated too. Great, let's talk about it. And and it was such a gift, really.
Yes. And I think that the question that comes up with this, because I'm hearing now the question very well, because we talked about the power tools earlier, is how to use the question to be channeled is how to use your ego with the heart's instructions, as we use that ego as a tool.
Yeah, I really love that distinction. I'm writing it down. That my ego is a power tool, not your true power source.
Yes.
Yeah. So that kind of walking hand in hand that your friend and you did and stuff. How do we do that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So and recognizing that ego is a tool that we need to use. So to dismiss it is also a detriment to us.
Yes.
Right? Because you and I, in our interaction, you and I were both kind of frustrated for a little bit, and with how difficult a piece of the preparation was, and we were, it took us a little bit for both of us to talk, about it, and when we did ally, and we were coming from our hearts when we talked, and it was so beautiful, and yet we could address the thing that was frustrating the ego.
Yes.
So
I love that, frustrating the ego.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to dive in and see what juiciness is here.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. Okay. So really curious and interested and excited to hear what you have to say, Divine, about all of this, because this is just to me, it's been so important. It's a learning. I'm still learning. We're all learning, but I'm grateful to be learning. And we are grateful for all of you who are willing to learn. The ego is not something negative. It is not something bad. It is not less than. And so many in your world, before they discover that there is more to them than ego, are asserting the ego, or are puffing up the ego, are building it up. And then as you start to learn so much that you are spiritual beings, as you start to yearn to learn and know spiritually who you are and what life is all about, so many of you then shift to the place where you put down the ego. Oh, the ego. Oh, I'm in my ego. Oh, and you start to dismiss the ego as having value, and it has much value. All of you have value. You can consider the ego as a layer on top, like the frosting on the cake. It is not quite that simplistic, but we're going to use this example because it is easier to present this way. So you consider the ego as the frosting on the cake. It adds value to the cake. The frostingless cake, we know Noemi Grace does not like that kind of cake. And many of you don't. A frostingless cake is not as sweet. It is not as tasty as the cake with the frosting. And so, but to only eat frosting, and some do, you are missing out on all of the wonderful flavors of the cake. And so to realize that there are so many layers to you. There is so much to you. There's so much depth to you. Do not live your life on the surface. If you do, you are missing most of you. As you start to grow and discover deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper layers of you, don't forget what's on the surface. Don't forget the frosting. Don't forget the icing. It's there. It's there, and it adds value. And so, firstly, do not overvalue or undervalue the ego. Recognize it has value, but do not let it run the show. Do not let it be all about frosting. Be able to be in companionship with the ego. If you dismiss the ego, if you diminish the ego, that is not of service to you. If you build up the ego and have it become bloated, that is not of value to you either. Recognizing the depth of you is so true and wondrous, and that there's so much to discover, and yet that layer on the top adds value. So be willing to have that interaction. Be willing to know when you are in purely that outer layer, or in purely the inner layers, or in that combination. Value the combination. That is a starting point. Value that connection between ego and true self, and ego and the truth of who you are. The ego doesn't want to do you damage. It doesn't want to hurt anyone. So as you discover the truth of who you are, share it with ego. Share with ego. You connect from that truth to ego and recognize that ego does serve you. But don't be only living from ego. So many of you want to live from only the depth of your being, and that is certainly helpful in certain times like meditation, but to live only from the depth as you are interacting with the world is not always so helpful. Being able to see the value. What is the ego communicating to you? The ego wound. There is some wound. Do not ignore the fact that there is wound. Wound exists with all of you. It is part of the human condition. Do not ignore the woundedness. And then be only spiritual. Address the wound. As you would address a wound on your body, you would address it, you would clean it out, you would bandage it. You wouldn't just say, it's only a wound. You would address the wound of the ego. Recognize there's value there. There is something to heal there, and there is a gift there. And recognize, be willing to see the gift and find the gift. And recognize that you are much deeper than that ego, which does not make the ego bad or less than. It makes it as a part of you that is not the whole of you. Learning to live from the whole of you is a lifelong journey that will cause you to transcend the suffering of the human race, to transcend the suffering that most people live in on a daily basis, all day long, or most of the day. So be willing to connect all the parts of you, and to live from all of you, and to live in communion with the ego. Yes, we did use that phrase. In communion. Communion is something valuable, something treasured. You don't commune with your enemy. The ego is not the enemy. The ego is a part of you. It is your friend, but it is not that domineering, controlling part of you to do that all the time. Use the ego as an ally, not as a commander. This is such a very, very important topic. We have so much more to share, and we are aware that our time here has come to a close for this time, and we invite you to come back every time, because there's always more depth. There's always more depth of you and more depth of the messages that we are sharing with you. We are in great love for you always. Namaste.
Aw, I love that we do not commune with the enemy.
How true.
Yes.
It's not the enemy.
No, I love this partnering of conversation and talk to it and say, well, let me hear you, ego. What is it you're frustrated or thing? And then I'll do my work. It's like the ego goes out and says, all right, this is what we're feeling for safety, and comes back, communes with the soul, and then the soul gets, okay, right, that's I'm commander here. So now we can come from here, and then it gives its instructions, and then it does its thing. That's a whole good chain there. I like that.
Well, yes, and I like the also yes, and I also like the comparison of, okay, so the ego has uncovered a wound. The ego's wound, is reacting from a wound, and don't ignore it. Like if you had a wound on your body, you wouldn't just be like, oh, bleeding and, opened up. You you'd clean it out, you'd bandage it, you do all of that stuff. You take care of it. So to take care of the ego is wounded is not just like, ego wounded again. It's something, there's a gift there, they said. And I think with every wound there is a gift. There's so many gifts if we are willing to go through and heal the wound. There's so much power behind the wound. When we heal the wound, it releases power. Ooh.
Yes.
Yes.
Ooh, when we heal the wound, we release power when
we heal the wound, power is released. The healing of the wound releases power.
Yes. Okay. Well, what we'll do, because we're so excited to be continuing, it's like it lends itself to a series, right? So we will continue this subject and this topic, and we'll grow with you guys. We'll heal with you guys each time that we show up. So we invite you to tune into all the replays if you've missed the series and you want to catch up, or if you just want to continue from where you are. So we'll be back the second Monday in September.
September 13th, yes.
Yes.
And so, yes, on OmTimes webpage, you can find all just look for Access to Angels and Grace, and you can get the archive and listen to the whole series or any part of it that speaks to you.
And catch up exactly where it speaks to you. Well, thank you so much, Noemi.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye.